Hey guys, Vahlkx here, and today I'm going to go over my Kingsguard build that I've got going on. And so if you don't know, today was a new patch, and in this patch there was some reworks to weapons, and this weapon so happens to be one of them. And the changes to it pretty much makes it a very good mobbing weapon now. I'll probably start using this more often, but without further ado, I'm going to get into the build and also talk about some different things about it that I found out, throughout my testing, and just kind of show you guys that. Starting with the changes they've made to the weapon, the very first thing they did was increase the base fire rate and also decrease the time to charge it up. And on top of that, what's kind of nice about having that fire rate increase is that the Guardian Lance that you summon is also affected by fire rate, and so that's pretty much just higher DPS output going on right there. Now you can summon 3, and instead of having to shoot the lance, to actually do damage, the lances will actually just target enemies automatically and just do continuous damage, which is nice for just general mobbing and crowd control. And the last thing they did was actually improve the duration and range of the weapon, and so like I said earlier, it's now pretty good for mobbing and farming, and then you can pretty much have constant uptime of the lances. Now to talk about the weapon, this weapon is mainly a mobbing weapon. I tried it embossing, but compared to what we have now, like Enduring Legacy or Greg's, it doesn't really compare. So this is definitely a mobbing weapon, purely based off the ability as well. But with that being said, the main stats we're going to be looking for here are going to be attack stats. So we're not going to be going for Colossus. So right now I have chill attack, firearm attack, crit hit damage, and I just have weapon speed there for now because I did run out of mats to change it. But I'd probably go for crit rate with that one, and I'll kind of talk about why you would want to go for crit rate later on. I also want to mention that having an element on the weapon is very beneficial because what that will do is actually proc the element on enemies. And so if we're using something like chill right here, it can actually freeze the enemies in the area of the lance. And if, let's say, they don't die like right away, they'll be frozen in place at least to continue taking that damage, and most likely they will die in that instance. Now I'm going to get right into the mods, and then right after I get into the mods, I'm going to talk about kind of some tricks about this weapon that I kind of found out during my testing. Now I'm going to start off with modding the gun, and so it's going to be pretty simple. Like any other weapon, we're going to be increasing the firearm attack. After that, we're going to be increasing the crit rate, and then following that, also the crit damage to scale that up. Like I said earlier, having chill on the weapon is going to be pretty good, and so to boost that up even more with the substat, we're going to be using chill enhancement and chill priority. For both chill priority and concentration priority, we are going to be losing a lot of reload time modifier, but that shouldn't really matter because the main purpose of actually shooting the gun is going to be having the uptime on the lances, because that's kind of where our main damage is going to be coming from. After that, we're going to be increasing fire rate, and so that's pretty good to just do in general for a weapon. And then as mentioned earlier with the changes to this weapon, fire rate is going to be good to just increase the damage output on the lances. Finally, for the last mod, you have two different options. Now, since this weapon is mainly a mobbing weapon, you could use Sweeping Squad to have more consistency and boosting up firearm attack, or you can do what I do right now, which is using Lethal Finish. And the reason for that is a very special and odd case for this weapon, and I'm going to kind of go into detail about that. Alright, so right now I am using Lethal Finish, and the reason for that is because right now, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's intended or if it's a bug, but when you summon the lance using this mod, it's actually adding a 60% base crit rate to the lances and not the actual weapon. So if we summon the lance, you'll see that I'm pretty much constantly critting right here, but then if I were to remove the lance and just shoot the weapon itself, we're not critting that often. So that's a pretty good reason to be using this right now for summoning the lances and doing a lot of damage with that. While it is nice getting a lot of crits like that with this mod on, and kind of summoning the lances like that, there is one caveat that I found during my testing, and that's when you're using a mod or a Descendant like Sharon, where you're getting damage boost when the enemy isn't targeting you. For some reason that crit rate does disappear, and so I just go ahead and kind of show that during my testing here. I'm going to go ahead and swap into Dangerous Ambush, and like I showed earlier, I was constantly critting when I summoned my lance, but then with this mod equipped, I'm pretty much not going to be critting, and I don't know why it does that, but that is kind of a problem with that. So if you do plan on using Lethal Finish with a Descendant, you just want to make sure you're not using something like Ambush. This is also the case for Sharon because of her passive, where you're going to do more damage if they're not targeting you, and so I don't have Ambush equipped, but the passive is there on that. And so when I summon the lance, it's going to be doing the same thing. It's not going to be critting that often. However, the one good thing about Sharon using this weapon is that if you go invis to proc ambush and then you summon a lance, you will be doing extra base damage with that, so that is another thing to keep in mind. Another thing that's good with this weapon is that if you did want to like shoot it and do damage to enemies, you can do that just fine. Or you can play a character like Haley, Enzo, or Valby to, increase the base crit rate and just boost that up. And that is also why we're going to be running, 2 crit rate mods to just get that high as possible to make sure we are consistently critting just overall. The weapon is very simple to use, and so all you gotta really do is summon the lance, and then when you shoot it, it'll increase the range and the duration that we see here on the bar going down. And it's pretty simple to keep the uptime on it. All you gotta do is make sure you're paying attention to that uptime and just shooting it again to refresh its duration. And then if we shoot out the other two, we can pretty much cover a large area, so that is what makes this weapon very good for mobbing. Last thing I'm going to show is that if you were wondering if you could reapply the duration on, a teammate's lance, you can't. I did a quick test on that, so here is that. Overall, with the changes to the weapon, it's become a lot better than before, and it's clearly targeted more for farming, so that's personally where I'm going to see myself using it more in. But it really excels in certain missions like the XP farm and Vespers, or defense missions where you can pre-place it and spawn kill enemies. But besides that, I hope the video helped you guys out in the build here, and also the little discussion about the lethal finish tech there. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.